Hey guys, it's Josh, and welcome to the Not So Bad Bachelor Pad, your favorite podcast for learning how to balance between being a functional adult and a raging dumpster fire. Today's guest is proof that it's never too late to rewrite your story. Nancy Pickard is a certified relationship coach who helps couples go from on the rocks to rock solid. She's worked with everyone from people ready to walk away to those craving deeper connection and real intimacy. She's climbed freaking Mount Kilimanjaro at 61, raised two sons, runs a powerful retreat for couples to actually heal, not just go round and round in circles. She's the author of Bigger and Braver. And if you're still dragging your feet on your healing journey, love, letting go of fear, well, buckle up because I'm pretty sure she'll help you get over all that. Nancy, welcome to the show. Nancy, thank you so much for making time for us today. How are we doing?
I'm great. And thanks for having me.
Of course. Now, we kind of talked a little bit before we started recording, but I'm so envious of you right now, not just because you've been in one time zone for a week, but because you actually are located in a pretty beautiful place, right?
Yeah, I live in Aspen, Colorado, and the summers here are just amazing. Every day is blue skies and perfect weather and great hikes and bikes, and it's just awesome to be here.
That's like on my bucket list to like take a trip to Aspen, but you never really hear anybody talk about it in the summer. So now I have to come twice a year.
Yeah, you know what they say? They say that people come for the winter and they stay for the summer.
I just can't wait to experience it. I have definitely been more into my nature outdoorsy bag lately. The city life is nice, but there are just too many people. Sometimes you just like to step outside, get some fresh air, and take in a beautiful sunrise or sunset.
Yeah, I agree. I'm out every day, all year round, every weather.
So have you always been located in Aspen, or where'd your story start?
No, I grew up in Buffalo, New York.
We've spent a few winters in Buffalo, and it is such a lovely relationship.
I
I
know.
was like, if you try to go to Buffalo, I think between December and March, you might have to like delay or reschedule the flight.
100. The same thing here though, because our airport is so small, but we
Okay.
don't get dumped like 34 inches that I used to have when I was growing up there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess you're kind of a fan of the cold weather, or a little bit of snow.
I'm really not, but I raised my family in New Jersey. So to me, that was the worst weather because you weren't really skiing and it was just cold and snowy. Anyway, I love where I am. That's all I could say.
Well, it's beautiful. Okay, so for those of you guys who are new to Nancy, she is an amazing relationship coach. Is that the thing you knew you wanted to do? Like when you were younger, did you think, you know what? I want to help build solid relationships. Or did it take a little bit of trial and error?
No, 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 no. First of all, for 16 years, I owned a personal training gym called Tight Ends Incorporated. And that was a fun job. That was a great job. I loved it. I'm very athletic. That's why I moved to Aspen. And no, I had a failed marriage after 26 years. And then I had another really big relationship fall apart. And I got myself a coach. And so I started coaching about 12 years ago, but really just one-on-one. And it wasn't until 3 years ago that I started to read Terry Real's books. I don't know if you know anything about him. But anybody who wants to know anything on relationships should pick up any of Terry's books. Fierce Intimacy, The New Rules of Marriage, When You and I Become Us. And actually, there's a book, he wrote the very first book on men's depression called I Don't Want to Talk About It. And it's like New York Times bestseller. I think they're all New York Times bestsellers. But I've been doing his coaching for 3 years.
That's amazing. I love that. So we kind of shied away from it these past few months, but that kind of just reminded me. So when I just turned 30 and I had a goal to fill my bookshelf up, and I got about 2/3 of the way, but recently I have been looking for more books to read and to add to it because I feel like life is a journey that each day we should be trying to be 1% better than we were the day before. And we should definitely start with the relationship within before we focus on the relationship without or on the outside. Those are the two biggest principles I try to live my life by. So I definitely want to check out that book about the depression. Like, I don't want to talk about it
Yeah, I don't want to
because that
talk
really is a
about it.
big issue right now.
Yeah, it's huge. And male depression is very different than female depression because it comes out more in anger, right? Anger is the low hanging fruit. And so that's easier to handle than being sad and depressed. But it's an epidemic for sure.
No, it's really a silent killer. It's silent because we just don't talk about it enough.
Right. Exactly.
So maybe I might have to have you back on after I start reading the book and we
Okay.
just sit down and we talk about that. Relationships. It's obviously what we do here, guys. It's not a surprise. If you are surprised that this is a relationship podcast, then welcome. And I don't know how you found us. We're glad you're here. There are a lot of ups and downs in any healthy relationship, but I feel like in this day and age, things are progressing so fast that it's hard to really refine our footing or get a solid baseline on how to date, how to maintain a relationship. What does a good relationship look like? So today, I think we should just be like Alice and go down the rabbit hole on some of the myths or the tricks or just the things that we've seen as coaches that cause people to trip up in relationships or keep people from finding something that could potentially be great for them.
Yeah, I think because when I work with couples, it's amazing that I can see why they've come together. And they've come together so that they can heal their own wounds. And the way that happens is that they trigger the shit out of each other, right? We call it the mysticism of marriage, that you date all these people and then you marry the one that is most exquisitely designed to stick a hot searing rod in your eye. And it doesn't make the person the wrong person. It means that you have work to do. You have to heal those childhood wounds and disempowering beliefs and the triggers that you're both hitting. So a lot of times you'll find somebody who's, an anxious attached person with a walled off, an avoidant attached person. And so the more the walled off person is walled off, the more anxious the anxious person gets, right?
Yeah.
And so the more they come at you, the more walled off they get. And it's a vicious cycle until you actually learn what you're doing, why you're doing it, where it comes from, and then how you can do something different. How can you lean in towards your partner instead of seeing that instead of thinking your partner is doing something to you, it's actually they're doing the only thing that they can do when they're triggered, and it happens to be the thing that is most triggering for you also.
I feel like we are in an age where people are really starting to learn about self care and boundaries and emotional awareness. But it's really introspective in the fact that they know how things affect them and how they feel, but they can't see the other person's perspective. And that's what a relationship is. It's a partnership. It's me plus you, not just me and what works for me. So how do you help these couples kind of deal with these childhood wounds without turning every conversation into like a therapy session?
The first thing I actually teach them is a little bit about the neurobiology of the emotional brain, because when you realize that there are different parts of your brain, so we talk about two of them. We use the hand model, and this is the adaptive child part of your brain, which is the subcortical. And when you get triggered, this is the part of your brain that is working. It's the only part that's working. And this is the fight, flight, freeze, or fix part. Everything you did as a child to stay safe is in this part of your brain. As you get older, over 25, you actually get the prefrontal cortex, the prefrontal part of your brain. This is the wise adult. So when you and I are speaking to each other right now, this is how we are. But when we get triggered, we basically flip our lid and we're not the parts of the brain aren't talking to each other. And the only part that's in control is the part you don't want to be in control. So if you were a fighter as a kid to stay safe, you're going to fight in your relationship. If you were a freezer or you were flight, that's all you're going to know how to do. If you're a fixer, which is not a normal fixer, it's like I'm only going to be okay if you're okay. Love me, love me, love me. Just, I'll do anything, just love me. It all comes from here. And so when I can teach that to my couples, I can then teach them how to not engage from this part of your brain. Take a time out, breathe, ask yourself some questions around it, and don't come back together until you're actually regulated. And then from this part of your brain, I can teach you winning strategies instead of this part of your brain that uses all the losing strategies.
And speaking of losing strategies, are there some big ones that you notice are commonplace in most of the modern relationships that you deal with?
Yeah. There are five, and some of us do all five, and then some do some of them, right? When I work with couples, some of them will be like, yep, 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 I do them all. So the need to be right, the need to control, what we call unbridled self-expression, which is a boundaryless need to say everything. Like women, this is what women do that men can't do. We'll be like, you said this, and 6 months ago you said that, and 3 years ago you said that. Like, we don't know where our keys are or our phone, but we remember every single thing our partner ever said or did. And when we're mad, we throw it, we vomit it all out, right? So that's unbridled self-expression, withdrawal, and retaliation. So retaliation is it's a bad way to try to communicate with somebody. I'm hurt and I want you to hurt, so you'll know how badly I hurt.
That's kind of where that saying hurt people probably
Yeah.
stems from.
Well, yes and no. Hurt people is also because damaged people hurt people, right?
Yeah.
So, yes, but in this particular case, it would be like an example of retaliation is I'm not going to have sex with you because you don't show me my love language, or you made me late for my business thing, and so I'm going to now make you late for something. You won't go see my parents, so I'm not going to go see your parents. That's retaliation. And all of those things, the need to be right, the need to control, all of them, instead of bringing you closer, they take you further away. They don't get you what you think you're going to get.
As you were talking, I had to be honest with myself. And I say this, even as coaches, we're still people. We're not perfect beings. As you were talking, I was like, a couple of those are definitely in
Which are yours?
anything that pops into the head definitely comes out of the mouth.
Really? Oh, you've got
Yeah,
unbridled self-expression? Yeah.
100%. And then I don't think I really do retaliation, but sometimes I do withdrawal because it's like maybe it's a hypercorrection. One thing that I figured out this year that is kind of a trigger point for me is like the word annoying or just to annoy. I never want to be a nuisance. And that stems from a lot of things probably in my childhood. But when people say I'm annoying, I always hypercorrect. And I was like, you'll never hear another word from me. I go back to that child seen rather than heard. I know it's not healthy. And so I try to not hypercorrect when I'm in those situations. But I think those two things I still do just a bit.
I think that everybody uses withdrawal at the end. Let's say I have the need to be right, and I try to push my need to be right on you. And then you come back at me with trying to control or withdrawal. I might try more to be right or use unbridled self-expression. And when I'm still not getting what I want, I will also withdraw. So at the end, everybody withdraws. But that's very different than being somebody who's walled off. Somebody who's walled off is always withdrawing. And there's two ways that you become somebody who withdraws. One of them is that you grew up in a family where just nobody shares. Emotions are just not shared. And you don't even know that that's not normal because it's very normal in your family of origin. So then you go out in the world and you just don't show emotions and talk about emotions. It's not comfortable for you. Not because you can't, but because you never did. You don't know how. It doesn't feel good. So when somebody comes at you, you get flooded. You can't even find your emotions. You don't want to talk about them and you back off. Another way is you grew up in a family where you're very enmeshed with a parent. Usually it's with a mother, and honey, you understand me more than your father ever does, or you're my little boy. I love you. I need you. I need you to take care of me. The parent feeds off of the child instead of the way it's supposed to be, where the child should feed emotionally off of the parent. That particular person, when they get into an adult relationship, they just can't handle somebody else's emotions. They've had it their whole life, and then they get walled off. So that's different. Those are the love avoidant people, and they all use withdrawal. The other way is just we all use withdrawal because it's game over. We've given up. We've tried all of our other losing strategies, and now we're just going to take our toys and go in our own room. And right.
I mean, that's such a real reference because we do that. Everybody does that. I think everybody has a need to be right. It's how high that need is the thing that really separates us. Because some people, they're like, you know what? I wasn't right. I can take this L, I can learn from it. And it's not the end of the world. But some people, it's that itch that you can't reach. And then when they can't be right, rather than just being really aggressive or blowing up, they're just like,
I'm out.
washing their hands of it,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. We
No,
say who's right and who's wrong in a relationship is who cares. It's not about right or wrong. That you have to decide, is this the sword I want to die on? Right? And
yeah.
then the need to control, the need to be right. You want somebody to not only do it your way, but to agree that your way is the right way. The need to control is you want someone to do it your way. You don't care if they agree or not. You just need them, I could love you if only you would do it this way, kind of thing.
That's so interesting because I guarantee if you ask one of those people, do you consider yourself a control freak? Do you have to be in charge? They would probably also say no, or I'm not. But
Well, a
I
lot
feel
of
like that's a
people
very,
do know it.
oh,
Like,
really?
do you like to, yeah, a lot of people, like those are mine. My
Okay.
need to control and my need to be right are big ones for me that I've had to let go of. So I've literally had to let go of trying to control my partner.
There could be some people who are just naturally more empathetic or aware of themselves. Or maybe we just change as we get older. But I feel like for the most part, a lot of people aren't that introspective that they realize they have certain behaviors. Maybe it's because they surround themselves with like-minded. So it's just a norm. Or like you were saying, they just come from a family where that's just the norm. So everything they see, everything they know how to operate and communicate is through that control aspect. And it's all, I guess my whole point in saying that is it's funny how you view yourself versus how other people view yourself. Because if you would have asked me probably like 5 or 6 years ago, I'd be like, no, I'm like the perfect green flag. Like I don't have any problems.
Right.
But as I've started to age or look into myself, I was like, no, I was like, we should adopt a filter or somewhat, or maybe we need to learn how to let things go and not be so personal. And I have noticed that I can do some of that now. I know that I shouldn't say this, or I find myself laughing at myself because when the thought enters, because you can't really control your thoughts.
No.
Like as soon as you get a stimulus, you have the thought. But sometimes I'll laugh because I'm like, old me definitely would have said that without any hesitation. Now I'm realizing I probably shouldn't say this either out loud or at this time. I think those little nuances, just getting to learn yourself better really does help prepare you for being a better partner. Because obviously, if we were all just perfect and we didn't need to change anything, I think everybody would just be in a relationship
Right. I
or
talk a
everybody would
lot
just be
about
happy.
containing boundaries and protective boundaries. Okay. So this is my protective boundary, and I get to choose what I'm going to let in and how upset I'm going to get. And this is my containing boundary. This is what protects the world from me. And the
I like that.
criteria, yeah, the criteria that we use is this true for me? Is this kind and respectful? And is it necessary in the moment? So if you say something to me, you're my partner, and you say something to me that's just not true for me, I'm just not taking it in. Like, I can look at you and think, whoa, he's triggered. He's going to say stuff that he doesn't necessarily even mean. I'm just not taking it in. And me too. If there's something I want to say and I know that this is not the moment to say it, then that's a choice I make. I don't take it in. So, like, a lot of times when you say something is the most important thing to consider. If you're not in your wise adult part of your brain, or you don't think the person who you're speaking to is in the wise adult part of your brain, that is not the time to have the conversation because it will never go well. It will be a losing strategy for one or both of you. And so there'll be a lot of times that I will want to say something. You have this like need that you've got to get it out. And generally it's not the right time. And if you don't say it, you either that will pass and you won't even need to say it, or you're going to pick a better time and you're going to contract. I think it's very important if you want to have a conversation with somebody, you contract for it. Hey babe, there's something I'd like to talk about with you. Is this a good time? And you're basically asking your partner, like, who am I speaking to right now? The
Right.
adaptive child or the wise adult part of your brain? Because if it's not the wise adult part of your brain, this is not the time.
And that's something I kind of use in my practice as well. We call it the 3 T's, but it's tone, turf, and time. Because you're right, not every conversation needs to happen right now, especially if you're triggered, agitated. There's at least a 75% chance you're going to say at least one thing that you meant to hurt somebody, but you didn't mean to hurt. No, I was like, you always have that one thing that you were like, you know what, I know this is going to cross the line. And then as soon as you say it, you wish you could take it back. So I always
Right.
like to think like, hey, should I have this conversation right now? Is this the proper place for it? Turf. Some conversations I don't think you should have in like an intimate space because you want to keep that space of love. You know, when you need to have a more serious conversation, take it somewhere that doesn't have another emotional attachment to it. And then tone. Sometimes we're so passionate that we don't hear how we're coming across to people, or it's because what we're used to, we don't think that it's a problem, but we always need to be cognizant of how we are conveying our emotions and our statements to people, because sometimes the tone really is the make or break.
Right, for sure. Yeah, and sometimes, like if your partner is talking to you in a loud voice, you can just say, hey, babe, I really want to listen to you, but I can't listen to you when you're talking loudly. Would you be willing to just lower your voice so I can hear you? Like I get dysregulated when you talk at that level. Whether the person thinks it's loud or not, for me, it's loud.
Mhm.
And so, would you be willing to lower your voice so I can really hear you?
I think that's communication. We've talked about that a lot. I think that really is what separates good couples from the ones who make it. What separates couples on the brink from the ones who actually make it, who can go through these hardships and reach the top of the summit and come out stronger?
Well, there are a few things. Obviously, communication is very important. You have to remember love. You have to remember that the person you're speaking with is somebody you do love and that you're on the same team. People lose that. They lose that they're on the same team. And then we call it relational reckoning. Am I getting enough out of this relationship to make grieving the loss of what I'm not getting worthwhile? Because there's inherent loss in every relationship. So take a look and see if are you getting enough that it's worth what grieving what you're not getting. And if it is, then you've got to start looking for what is working and stop concentrating on what isn't working because you get what you think about, right?
Yeah. Now, that's a really big thing. I had a conversation with somebody. We've done so much work on setting boundaries that we don't know how to handle difficult moments anymore. And what I mean by that is, I think some people have got to the point where they're like, I know what I will tolerate. I know what I won't tolerate. If anything is outside of my comfort zone, I'm just not even going to deal with it and I'm just going to leave it. But life is meant to be a trial. You know, I was like, it's meant to have hard times. Everything shouldn't be easy street. When you are so healed that you can't have confrontation or debate, I think that's kind of a big problem because you don't want to quit every relationship or every job you have because there was a tough moment or you felt like your feelings were hurt. Because then you'll probably end up alone or you can't really sustain any type of relationship because there are hard moments in every type of relationship.
100%. And relationships are messy. Relationships aren't easy. And wherever you go, there you are. So you can leave this party, this person, but you're going to take your same wounds with you. So you might as well heal them with the person that you already think you love, if you love them. You know, not every relationship is meant to be saved. And we all send in the representative in the beginning. You don't send in the best, version of who you'd like to be, but nobody can hold on to that. So eventually you're left with the person that you've got. Like every relationship goes through harmony, disharmony, and repair over and over and over again. It can happen 3 times in a dinner conversation, right? But if you don't learn how to repair, then you're not really getting back into harmony, and it's going to keep happening and keep happening and keep happening. And then the other thing that happens with the relationships is that there's three parts to a relationship. The first part, which we call love without knowledge, right? Everything's great, no red flags, sex is great, everything is, you just think this is it. You found your person. That can last a week, it can last 6 months, it could last a year or two. The representatives finally pack their bags and leave, and now you're left with knowledge without love. Now you're like, whoa, this is not what I signed on for, and where's my representative? And I don't know if this is the right person for me. And you start to see everything that's not working. A lot of relationships never make it past that point. That's when people bail. If you stay with it, you get to love with knowledge. Now, this person knows all of my flaws. I know their flaws, and I still want to be with this person. That's like the first day of a real relationship.
I love that. And I've said this not as eloquently as you just kind of painted that picture, but the reason I love the slow burner in a relationship is because there's a lot of a person that you won't see in the first 3 months, but you'll overcommit and then you're left with the reality. I was like, we all are a bit performative because we want to be liked. We want the other person to pick us, and we want to be a pickable person. So we concede on some things. But after a while, you get so comfortable, you're like, I don't have to put on an act anymore. I can just be me. But that's a whole new person to your partner,
Right.
in a sense, because as you said, you've had a representative here this whole time. And now that the representative's gone, they're like, what is this? I don't know how to work this. This is new.
Right. I want that representative back. I've said that. I have said that to my partner. Where's the representative? I want him back, right?
Yeah. I
So
mean,
true.
I love that. You also mentioned repair in relationships. That is a good point because so often, you have your honeymoon phase, things get a little bumpy, and then we like move on. You settle and move on. But I like the idea of repairing it because I edited it out earlier, guys, but you might even hear it, I have a leaky roof. So if I just bust a little leak bubble, yeah, sure, I won't have to deal with the drip for now. But the next time it rains or something happens, it's just going to like leak again. It has to be thoroughly repaired so that I don't have this problem. So I think that is an amazing outlook to have within your relationship that, hey, we just went through something. Let's not sweep it under the rug and let's not ignore it. Let's take the time to address why it triggered us or why this was such a big moment for us, work through it, and then move on. That way we know, hey, we were in a similar situation before. I know that this won't bother me as much, or it shouldn't bother me because I'm aware that this is an area that I've needed to work on, or you need to work on, or we need to work on. So I think those are two really great points that you
Yeah.
kind
Also,
of enlightened us.
I think that people who don't know how to repair get really nervous when they get to disharmony. But if you know that you have the skills with your partner to repair, it doesn't really matter how often you get into disharmony because you're going to get yourself back into harmony. And the thing I teach my clients is that when you want to repair, there should be one speaker and one listener. It's not a dialogue, it's really a one-way conversation. And the speaker, we use a feedback wheel where you speak from the eye, this is what happened, that's the camera view, it's not subjective, anyone would see it. And then the story I make up is that you don't care about me, or you're disrespectful, or you're a liar, whatever you want to say, you've wrapped it in a story. And then the next part is, that story made me feel sad and lonely. And the last part is, what I need from you is X, right? So you didn't just say, hey, you're a this or that. You wrapped it all up in your story. You said your story makes you feel bad, and this is a request. This is what I need from you. And now the speaker, this whole time, should just be curious about your subjective reality. They shouldn't get resentful. They shouldn't get resistant. They shouldn't be thinking, well, that didn't happen, or I didn't say that, or I wouldn't have felt that way. Just be curious about your partner's subjective reality, and then respond with relational generosity to the thing they're asking. If you can do it and it doesn't cost you too much to do the thing they want, you give it to them because it's good for the ecology of the relationship. That's what, that's how you repair.
And I'm glad you even took that a step further, because I could easily, that being the next question for a lot of people is, what does repair actually mean? Because we all have this idea of when we hear things, what it means, but really having somebody clearly define what it, not only what it is, but an example of it in practice really makes it more tangible, easier to digest for people. And then they're more likely to start using that process. So thank you for that. And I mean, I might start using that, because it is true. Some people, they listen to respond. They don't listen to understand. They're just like, okay, and you're done. I'm going to say my thing.
Right.
Which you would think, oh, well, that's how conversations work. Like, you talk, I talk, you talk, I talk. But most times it doesn't really need to be a back and forth. You don't need a huge long volley. Sometimes it's just, hey, I'm just giving you the ball. I don't need anything. You don't have to give it back to me. Like, this is, the ball's just in your court. Here's how I felt. Here's what I meant. I've kind of like said my piece. You take, process, and do what you want with that information now. And hopefully it's, you process, you learn, and we don't have the same disharmony. Because at least for me, repetition really, that's one of my trigger points. I can't have the same issue over and over and over and over again, because I feel like I'm not learning or you're not learning. And then if we're not learning each other or learning how to be better for each other, then for me, sometimes I'm like, well, what is the point of this conversation, or this relationship? Is that always the best thing? No, but it's just me. That's just a thing.
It's your thing.
Yeah, it's my thing, for better or worse. That's the hill I'm willing to die on.
Yeah, that's the hill you're going to die on. Well, I do think that you have to learn what the dance is, the losing strategy dance. We call it stance, stance, stance. I need to be right. I need to control. I need to go into unbridled self-expression. I withdraw. I withdraw. When you know what your dance of losing strategies are with your partner, then you can stop it. Because basically, no matter what you're arguing about, your dance is the same, because your losing strategies are always going to be there until you learn how to do it differently. So it will seem like it's always the same. It might seem like you're having the same conversation over and over again, but the subject could very well be different, but your dance is the same. You both get triggered. One gets triggered, the other gets triggered. Now you're both in your adaptive child. There's not a wise adult in the room, and you're just going to bump it. You're going to bump your losing strategies at each other. So when you learn to have a conversation and repair and not get your back up because you're being curious on your partner's feelings. A lot of times your partner just wants to be seen and heard. Women in particular feel that they're not being seen and heard. And that's because men, in general, if the woman complains to you, in general, what a man hears is, I'm not good enough, I'm broken, I'll never make you happy, nothing's ever good enough for you. That's what they're hearing, so they're not even getting curious about what the woman's talking about, because their back is up, they're in resistance, and that's all they're hearing. They're hearing, I'm a bad boy, basically. If instead they can just listen to what she's feeling, it doesn't mean she's right. It only means that you're listening to her feelings. And that's all she wants. You don't have to say, I'm sorry, I did something wrong. You could say, I'm sorry you're hurt, because you love this person. You can be sorry they're hurt without taking on responsibility for the thing that they're upset about, because that's their wound. It may not be something that you're sorry you did, but you can always be sorry they're hurt. I can see how you would feel that way. Or, I know I've been late before. I can see how that upsets you, without saying, I'm sorry I'm late, because maybe you were late because of traffic or whatever. Who knows? But it doesn't matter. Your partner just wants you to see and hear what's up for them. It's a game changer.
It really is, because there's not always a villain, in the relationship, in the situation. I was like, life just happens. We all know that. So keeping that in mind, you're like, how can I be a better partner? It's just acknowledging, like, hey, this was a crappy thing, it couldn't be avoided, or sorry that this was the outcome of this conversation or whatever. That wasn't my intention. And then like going from there, like you said, like I see how this is affecting you. I want to acknowledge it because your emotions are valid and I respect them. I want to keep them safe is a really big thing. It doesn't always have to be an I, me, or you statement, is what I've come to learn. Things just are. And once we can start to accept that and not think that it's necessarily direct causation from another person, you can kind of communicate a little bit better. And hopefully that leads to a healthier dialogue, resolution dance when you're in disharmony.
Yeah, because I'm telling you, most of my couples, when they come to me, the women are really like, I just want to be seen and heard. I'm a human being. I want to be seen and heard. And the man doesn't understand what, and this can be same sex, it can be queer, it can be anything. It's all the same. It can be siblings, it can be mother-daughter. Relationships are just two people that are in communication. People just want to be seen and heard and validated. And if you're going to get your back up when they're trying to tell you what's up for them, they're not going to feel seen and heard. That's what it comes down to.
And I feel like that could be a cause for withdrawal, or like a certain time where people start leaning more into that withdrawal when you know you're in a relationship situation where you feel invisible in a sense. You're like, why bother? Why am I going to say anything? Because I already know the song and dance.
Yeah, and also they feel if every time I say something about my feelings to my partner or I complain, which by the way, that's a losing strategy. You shouldn't complain, you should make a request. Would you be willing is instead of complaining. But women will shut down and they'll stop telling you what's wrong because you fight with them. You make them feel like they're nagging or you make them feel like they're wrong and they'll stop, but then they'll leave. So you win the fight, but you lose the war because they give up. And when they can leave, they leave.
I always love talking with women on the show because it really just goes to show the difference of perspective. Because the male brain and the female brain just don't uptake or process or execute information the same way. Uh, and that goes for many different fields. It's not just with emotions, it's just the way it is. Besides the fact that every person's different, there are just certain things that are kind of gendered, for better or worse.
For
Like you just
sure.
notice the pattern. And I love hearing what the other pattern is or like the other perspective is, because I would have not thought that in the slightest, because we can only think how we think. So I know men have the quote unquote logical brain. And you're right. Sometimes we won't even know that an argument is happening or there's a bit of disharmony, but we just have that need to always be right, or we have to fix a thing. Like we can't just acknowledge that you're in a state of unrest or emotional disharmony. Because if we hear that, what we hear is there's a problem. Either I'm the cause of it or I now have to find a solution to fix it, when that's not really the ask from our partners.
Right, exactly. Most women don't want you to fix it. They want you to hear their subjective reality. And so that's a game changer is if you can listen without reacting and then just be relationally generous. So relational generosity is a term that means that you give your partner what they're asking for if it doesn't cost you too much to do so. Lots of times women will say, why do I need to do that? Like I do it all day long. Why do I need to do that for him? Or why do I have to, I'll say to him, you've got to appreciate what you're getting. If you ask for something and you get 10%, you have to fall over yourself to appreciate the 10%. That's the only way you're going to get 15%. Because if you don't appreciate the change when it comes, you're not going to get more. Why bother? And then women will be like, well, I do this all day long. Why do I need to like thank him? Right? You thank him because you want more of it. It's just the way it is. Sometimes people will say, I'm giving. I'm always giving. I'm giving. I'm giving. Why do I have to give? If what they're asking for does not cost you too much, then you give it to them because it's good for the ecology of the relationship. Happy spouse, happy house, right? Happy wife, happy life. That's where that comes from. And there's truth in that. And so be on the same team. And if there's something you can give, sometimes I'll say to my partner, there's something I need to ask you. and I need you to be relationally generous. So I'm setting him up to like think about, is it something you can give me? Is it more important to me than it is for you? Because lots of times people want to do something or go someplace or try something that you don't really care about, but the other person really does care about it. So if it's not too much for you to do it, you do it because it's good for the system that you live within.
Yeah, I mean, 2 points that kind of came up to me when as you were saying that is priming people to be in a state of generosity is really huge because most times they don't mind doing the act of service, especially if they know that's your love language or how you just feel appreciated. So if it's when people feel neutral about something and then somebody else feels strong about it, 9 times out of 10 they'll just go ahead and do whatever thing you feel passionate about. And whether that's what movie you want to see, where you want to eat at, if it's just something like you said that doesn't cost too much. It's not a really big investment for them or something that they're just like, this is a definite hard pass for me. They'll do the thing that you want. And I love that because so many times people are like, oh, I really wanted to do this, but you didn't say anything. So I feel like just queuing up that conversation to be like, hey, this is really what I would like to do, or how you phrased it is really great because I'm pretty sure you get a better response from your partner, at least
Oh, you
when
get a
you have
great
that.
response.
Yeah,
Yeah. Although he will say, when's it my time to get some relational generosity? And I'll be like, I'm relationally generous all the time. I just don't name it. Right. But yeah,
that's the big thing. I was like, there's always a running tally list. We might not know about it, but there's always a running list. I've learned that.
yeah.
Nancy, I don't know how often you listen to the show, but I love not only educating the audience. I think it's great for them to get to know you as a person. So I do a segment that's kind of like an icebreaker, but in reverse. I kind of wait till we've been here a little while, we've settled in, and then I get them to get to know you a little bit. So my first question, obviously, name of the show, Not So Bad Bachelor Pad or Bachelorette. We're workshopping some things to be more inclusive now that the audience
Okay.
has grown. But what's your current relationship status? Are you partnered, unpartnered, in a bit of a situation?
I've been with the same man for 8 years and we are engaged in perpetuity. So we're engaged. We're not getting married. We've both been married forever to other people. And we actually live in 2 states. So we're together about 9 months of the year. I live in Aspen, Colorado. He lives in Mill Valley, California. And we spend months at a time together. And then we have 3 different months throughout the year that we are each in our own state.
That is such an interesting concept, and I've never thought about that. Like we've talked this season about maybe having like separate houses or separate rooms, but I mean, this is a whole nother level. And why do I kind of like it?
It's so good. It's so good. People are not, first of all, we're much older. So if you've been married and you have children and maybe even grandchildren already, we're not put in each other's lives to make our lives smaller. And it just works really well for us. We are totally committed. We're very secure attachment. We don't ever worry about what's going on and if you can trust each other. And we love our alone time and we love our together time. And so when we're here in Aspen, Colorado, I have a ton of friends and we go out all the time and we're extremely social. And then when he's gone and I'm here, I have time for other friends to come stay with me. I have my own time. I have my children. I can go visit them. It's just a perfect setup for us.
Once again, why do I love that? Like that really is great. Like you said, you don't want to make your life smaller to accommodate the other person. Like you both lived full, enriched lives and you should enjoy them. And having a partner should just heighten that experience, not diminish it or crash it in a sense. So I like that.
Exactly.
And I mean, there are so many like probably logistics, but you guys worked it out and it works for you. So once again, kudos on that. Hopefully,
Thank you.
maybe I might have to start expanding my horizons a little bit and seeing about making that a
A
reality
thing.
for me as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Question 2: red flag or growing pain? Needing to take a break mid argument.
No, that's a great thing to do. It's not a red flag. It's a green light.
I kind of agree.
We called
we
it
go
timeout.
because once again that goes back to that timing aspect that you were talking about is sometimes you do just need a minute to get your thoughts in order so that you're not super impulsive or that you're registering your own feelings. Sometimes I find myself, I hear something and I instantaneously get up in arms about it, but I take a beat and I actually think about what I heard and what I felt. And when I realized that I really wasn't upset, maybe about what was said, it was just the tone, or maybe it wasn't the tone, but what was said, then I can actually work on repairing the situation to be like, hey, here's the thing I really didn't like, or what I had a problem with. That way, because it's like, I'm wrong sometimes. I'm starting to say that more and more. And I was like, and you did what you were supposed to do. You communicated your feelings to me. I don't want you to ever think that you can't do that. I just wasn't at a place where I could
Yeah, you were
receive
here.
or, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
We call it a timeout, and it's a conscious timeout. So you're not withdrawing, you're not leaving mad. You're basically saying, right or wrong, for whatever reason, in this moment, I don't trust the next thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to call a timeout. And I will check back in 30 minutes. And then you do check back in.
That kind of leads me to my next point is what is one of the biggest mistakes you see couples make when they're trying to reconnect?
After a fight, you mean?
Mhm.
I think that they go back to the need to be right. When you're in this part of your brain, the adaptive child part of your brain, this part of your brain does not care about communication, vulnerability, or intimacy. It can only do what it did as a child to stay safe. And what was adaptive then is maladaptive now. So when you try to have a conversation from the adaptive child part of your brain, it's not going to go well. And that's what people do. They argue when they're here. It's never going to go well.
There's not really much I can like. You can't make a point against that. It's valid. When you just live here, there's not room for anybody else but you. So I can see how those people who are always in that fight kind of mode have trouble, like I said, just reconnecting or forming any type of connection because it's always combative. It's that black cat energy that people talk about, because cats are something fierce. Like you can't love them when you want to. You got to love
Yeah.
them on their terms. And even still, you might get a couple paws or scratches to the face.
Right, right.
Yeah. What do you think is more damaging, silence or yelling?
I think they're equally damaging.
Both of those are really boundary violations. If you're yelling, then you've got a very bad containing boundary. And so you're very connected because you're sharing everything, but you're not protected. And if you're silent, you're very protected, but you're not connected. So neither one of those. They're both losers.
No,
No,
I can see that. It's so hard because I feel like most people are one or the other. Finding that balance between contributing again and then just being a wallflower is tough.
Yeah, being walled off makes somebody very anxious. They don't know what you're feeling. They get very anxious. They need to know what you're thinking. Yelling, they know what you're thinking, right? But they're polarities. You want to be in the center of health, which means that you want to be connected and protected. And those two are at the opposite ends.
I feel like giving imagery helps people connect to the ideas that we share. And so giving like a spectrum is a great way to illustrate that point.
Thank you.
This is a question that somebody said to me just being silly, but I kind of like it. So I'm going to ask you.
I'm curious what's coming out of your mouth.
So if you had to give one of these things up, which one would it be? Would you give up kissing or using condiments? I know it's a bit random, but I thought it was a great question.
I'd give up using condiments. I don't think I'd want to go through the rest of my life not kissing.
It's still hard for me because you're right. I love kissing, but to never use a condiment?
You're talking about like salt and pepper, ketchup, mustard.
Yeah. Ranch, barbecue, like condiments are on a lot of things.
Yeah, they are. Well, luckily, really, I'm never going to have to make that choice.
You're right. Okay, last question I got for you. Is fixing your partner ever okay?
Gosh, you're talking to somebody who likes to control. You know what I believe? I believe that everybody can do better and be better. And sometimes when you love somebody, you can help them to be better and do better and learn differently. So, yeah, I think that you can't force it on somebody, but you can invite people. You can invite change. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, I've learned a lot from my partner. My partner learns a lot from me.
Which is what any healthy relationship
Right.
should be.
Right. So you can't force it, but you certainly can invite it.
Well, Nancy, I think that's just about every question I could have thought of to ask you today. I had the best time.
I had a good time too.
Your perspective on relationships was a real brush.
Thanks.
And I hope anybody who's listening right now also picked up one or two of those nuggets that you dropped. But in case there are more nuggets that they want to learn from,
Mm-hmm.
how can we connect with you?
I have a lot more nuggets, by the way, that they will want. So there's a few ways, and I'm sure that you'll put all these links in, but nancypickardlifecoach.com is my website. They can get a free discovery call from going there. And Nancy Pickard Life Coach on Instagram. I have a ton of reels. I have a YouTube station. But if you just scroll through my Instagram, you'll get a lot of nuggets. I do relationship 2-day boot camps, but I'm not doing another one until April in Austin, Texas. And I'm doing an online Zoom course, 10 weeks for singles or couples, called The Art of Relationship Skills. And it's 90 minutes once a week on Zoom. It starts the first week in September. I don't remember offhand what day that is. And that's great. That's for everybody. You can get, not only do you get everything that's in my 2-day boot camp, but you get it in little bite sizes. So you get to practice the skills on a weekly basis and come back and report to the group how you did, or some laser coaching. And I think that's the best way that people can get all of this in a very short period of time.
Alrighty, I will see all you amazing bachelors and bachelorettes for another episode next Wednesday.